Theseus, the legendary founder of Athens, was very good friends with Pithous, king of the Lapiths. One day, the two men vowed to support one another in getting married to Zeus's daughters after losing their wives. Theseus selected Helen of Sparta, and with his great friend's assistance, he actually took Helen and left her in Athens. But Pithous was even more rash and picked Persephone, the queen of the Underworld. Theseus realized it was impossible to travel to Hades, kidnap the queen just beneath the god's nose, and then make his way back to the realm of the living. So he begged his friend to rethink his decision, but Pithous would not listen. Unfortunately, their quest in Hades ended unsuccessfully. According to different versions of the myth, when they sat down to rest, they were either shackled or enchanted to remain still. In both cases, they remained trapped in Hades. Heracles later tried to help them, but only managed to save Theseus. Apparently, the crime was too grave to allow Pithous to return to the surface. Welcome to the History Realm. Today we will go over 8 stories of mortals or demigods who successfully witnessed the underworld and some who actually returned to the realm of the living, with the story of Theseus and Pithous as our number 1 story. Let's like the video and move on to the story of Hippolytus. Yes, Hippolytus, the son of Theseus, who worshipped Artemis and refused to honor Aphrodite. To punish him, Aphrodite cursed his stepmother, Phaedra, to fall in love with him. As Hippolytus refused her advances, Phaedra committed suicide and left a note blaming her stepson for raping her. Theseus begged Poseidon, his father, to punish Hippolytus for this great crime. Poseidon drove Hippolytus's chariot horses insane, overturning the chariot and dragging Hippolytus to death. In the end, the goddess Artemis told Theseus the truth and made sure that Hippolytus's memory would live on. But according to Pausanias, Asclepius, the god of medicine, raised Hippolytus from the dead, transforming him into the constellation Auriga, and was followed by Zeus, punishing him for this deed. Next we have Heracles, the son of Zeus, and Alcmene is especially famous for his 12 labors, the last and most difficult of which saw him capturing Cerberus and taking him to King Eurystheus of Tiryns. What isn't a difficult labor, though, is to subscribe to our channel to receive more great myths and legends. Anyways, Heracles originally came to Eleusis to be purified and inducted into the Eleusinian rituals, knowing the dangers in the realm of Hades. Later he went to Taenarum, which was close to Sparta and home to the secret entrance to the Underworld. In front of him, the spirits of the dead ran away. Merely Meleager and the Gorgon Medusa remained, and Hermes, the hero's companion, informed him that Medusa was nothing more than a phantom as Heracles prepared to face her. Near the gates of Hades, Hercules met Theseus and Pithous, who were trapped for attempting to abduct Persephone. Heracles saved Theseus, but Pithous could not be lifted. Next, Heracles is said to have engaged in a wrestling match with Menoetes, a minor god of Hades. The hero won and was given an opportunity to meet Hades. The god allowed Heracles to take Cerberus with him, but only under the condition that he would not use any weapons to capture him and to return him upon completing the labor. At the gates close to the river Acheron, Heracles discovered Cerberus. Despite the hound's dragon tail biting the hero's leg, he was able to control it with just his hands. Then, in accordance with the deal made with Hades, Heracles brought Cerberus to Eurystheus and then sent Cerberus back to the underworld. Heracles was also rumored to have been to the underworld in other myths. Heracles basically became a personal dog walker for Hades. And now we have Sisyphus, the legendary king of Corinth, was the only mortal in Greek mythology to have visited Hades not once, not twice, but 3 times. After Zeus abducted Aegina, Sisyphus betrayed Zeus. He told Asopus, the river god and father of Aegina, what had happened in exchange for the river god to create an eternal spring for Sisyphus's kingdom of Corinth. To punish Sisyphus for his betrayal, Zeus sent Thanatos, the god of death, after him, yet Sisyphus managed to outwit death. He asked Thanatos to demonstrate how the chains of death worked and then locked them on Death himself. Death found himself a prisoner in Sisyphus's house. With Death locked up, no one could die, no matter how gruesome the injuries suffered. The headless, bloodless, mortally wounded, and disease-torn continued to walk the earth, racked with pain and begging for release. Finally, the war god Ares set Death free and delivered Sisyphus to him in chains. Sisyphus, though, was not going down without a fight. Before leaving for the underworld, he instructed his wife to leave his dead body unattended and naked in a public space. Once in Hades, Sisyphus asked Persephone to let him return to the surface and ensure his body's proper and decent treatment. The queen with compassion agreed, but Sisyphus used the opportunity to escape. Before succeeding, he was dragged back down and punished to eternally push a massive boulder to the top of a steep hill. But his efforts were always in vain, for whenever Sisyphus neared the top, the rock would roll right back down again. Sisyphus was thus forced to start his labor all over again. I can't imagine Thanatos going into work on Monday with that massive humiliation on his record. All right, next we have Odysseus. To access the realm of the dead and meet Tiresias, the blind seer who will help Odysseus safely leave the island of the sorceress Circe, Odysseus offered libations of milk, honey, wine, and water with white barley to invoke the souls of the dead. Right after that, he sacrificed sheep, and the ghosts of the dead swarmed out of Erebus. It is important to note at this point that there is some debate over whether Odysseus actually entered the underworld or merely called upon the spirits of the dead close to an entrance of Hades. Elpenor, a companion of Odysseus who died on Circe's island without a proper burial since his companions disregarded his whereabouts, was the first soul to appear. Anticleia, the mother of Odysseus, made the second appearance. Sadly, Odysseus found out about her passing in this manner. She had died while he was still away. Odysseus, of course, also encounters Tiresias, who predicts the direction of his journey and says, "You may yet reach Ithaca, though you will suffer." During the rest of the journey, Odysseus encounters a series of noble women and heroes, including Agamemnon, Ajax, and Achilles. Odysseus was even confronted by the shade of his old friend Achilles, expressing his frustration with his stay in the underworld and lamenting the torments of being dead, driving home the value of the life Odysseus still possesses. "I would rather work the soil as a serf on hire to some landless, impoverished peasant than be king of all these lifeless dead." Next up is Orpheus, a legendary poet and musician whose name was firmly connected with ancient Greek mystical rites and culture. In the famous tale, Orpheus fell in love with the beautiful nymph Eurydice. As soon as they got married, Aristeus, a minor divinity, attempted to snatch Eurydice, who ran into the forest, was bitten by a venomous snake, and died. Orpheus did not give up on her. He took his lyre and ventured into the underworld. The first obstacle he encountered was Cerberus. The three-headed hound was easily tamed by Orpheus's music. Reaching the thrones of Hades and Persephone, Orpheus sang. His sound was that of someone who has suddenly lost everything. He sang of his love for Eurydice, his loss of her, and his desire to have her return. Everything in the underworld stopped when the music reached its peak of intensity. Orpheus would have his request granted by Hades and Persephone. Music had triumphed. But this was only under the condition that you like this video to support the channel. Also, Orpheus must not turn around until they arrived at the light of the realm of the living. He would have to guide Eurydice back to the surface. Orpheus agreed and began walking. However, he could not hear Eurydice's steps or any other sound coming from behind him. When he had almost reached the light, he became afraid that the gods had deceived him and that Eurydice was not following him as promised. He then looked back only to see the soul of his loved one being drawn back into the darkness. Orpheus had completed a task like no other. He had traveled to the underworld and had come back. However, he failed to bring back Eurydice, the love of his life. Orpheus traveled to the depths of the underworld and back for his soulmate. How far would you go for your loved one or soulmate? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, on the History Realm.